So I have a little bit of breaking news for everybody. President Trump announced that U.S. troops are going to be taken out of a certain region of Syria. Now, the reason why our troops are in this particular region in Syria is, at least on paper, and it probably is the real case, but I'm not sure, to protect the Kurds. So the Kurds really assisted us in the fight against ISIS. You know, they're actually, one could argue like the primary anti-ISIS fighting force in Syria. Now, you guys know better than anybody how much of a mess our foreign policy is. And it's an open secret that we have funded Saudi Arabia, and through Saudi weapons deals, they then give some of those weapons and some of that support to jihadist factions inside of Syria. So it's possible they have backing from Saudi Arabia. Also, there was a program previously where we just directly funded rebel groups in Syria, and many of them were jihadist groups. So it's a weird policy where we're on like both sides of a conflict at the same time. In fact, the LA Times a few years back reported exactly that Pentagon armed forces in Syria were fighting CIA armed forces in Syria. So just to show you how much of a total mess our foreign policy is. But Trump is saying now we're going to withdraw our troops from a particular region of Syria where they're basically protecting the Kurds. And what everybody fully expects to happen is Turkey's Erdogan is going to invade now and basically brutally dominate the region, and there are fears that there's going to be like ethnic cleansing of the Kurds. You know, the Turkish government doesn't really have the best human rights record, to say the least, and they viciously repress the Kurds within their border. But the idea now is, even though the Kurds helped us defeat ISIS, and they have thousands of ISIS fighters that they've captured and are still guarding. Like they basically have like imprisoned thousands of ISIS fighters. The U.S. is going to pull out, and then Turkey is going to invade, and then who knows what's going to happen from there, because obviously the Turkish military is much more powerful than these Kurdish fighters. And so there's a fear now that there will either be a conflict or be some sort of ethnic cleansing or whatever. And it's basically a guarantee that Turkey is now going to invade Syria, which opens up a whole other can of worms. And, there are expansionist goals of a lot of these characters in the region. I think that Saudi Arabia has expansionist goals. I think that, honestly, in Erdogan's heart of hearts, he wants to reestablish the Ottoman Empire. You do have a lot of these like authoritarian leaders who want to, take this country back to its glory days, and so they're very expansionist, and they're willing to violate human rights like it's nobody's business. So then, of course, the conversation becomes, well, what should the U.S. do? And I actually think this is a difficult question, and here's why. You guys know I'm a firm non-interventionist. I think the only time that we should use military force is basically to defend our country. Now, if there's cases of like a genocide or something, I'm perfectly fine with the United Nations getting involved. So we do it not in a unilateral way. We do it with the world together. So I'm in favor of, trying to protect human rights the proper way through the UN with all these other nations. So we're not a nation above nations, we're a nation among nations. But other than that, the only time I'd use the U.S. military is to defend the country. So what should happen in this Syria situation? Well, Noam Chomsky, of all people, and everybody knows he's one of the strongest anti-imperialists that there is, he actually has said previously, way before this happened, that this is the one place in the world he would keep U.S. troops. That's interesting. Why? He basically argues because they're kind of, in this particular region, it is like a peacekeeping mission. And it is like they're just preventing the wholesale slaughter of the Kurds. So that's his take on it, and I think that's fascinating, and I think that should be weighed into our decision-making process, because you have the most anti-interventionist, non-imperialist, anti-imperialist guy saying, hold on now, like, this is the one region where it looks like we're not doing anything exploitative. It's legit like we're just that last line of defense where Turkey knows, well, we can't do anything against the Kurds because the Americans are there. So that's what he says. Now, the counter-argument to all this is, though, and I also find this compelling, to be fair. I find Chomsky's point compelling, but I find the opposite compelling, too. And the opposite point is, well, we're there illegally in the first place. So, like, the idea that we were there at all to begin with is something that's incredibly controversial and scandalous, because this is what's happened over the years, is that we just willy-nilly send our troops wherever we want for whatever reason. And there was no approval through Congress. It's U.S. ground troops in Syria. And it's, are U.S. taxpayers okay with footing this bill? Is this something that you would put on your list of priorities of things we should pay for, or is this way down the list? Now, I get it. You can make the same case for, the Uyghur Muslims who are literally being dragged into concentration camps at the moment. You can make the same case for the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, who are some of the most repressed people on earth. You can make an argument of a necessary peacekeeping mission in Kashmir, where, Modi's cracking down and has cut off all communications. Like, there's a lot of places where you could argue something so egregious, such a violation of human rights is going on, that there's an argument for us to be there. But if you are going to be there, you have to do it the right way up front. You have to, okay, you want to be in Syria, you want to protect the Kurds, have a vote on it in Congress. Have a vote on it. Poll the American people. See what percentage of the American people, given all the facts and being fully educated, what percentage of them would want to go over there and do it? How long are we going to stay there? That's the other point that I find compelling is okay, so if you say we should stay there, how long? How long? Should we be there indefinitely? I don't know. I'm asking. So I honestly believe this is a complicated issue. And the only thing that really gave me pause initially is Noam Chomsky, because Noam Chomsky was like, this is the one place where it's okay to keep a residual force just to prevent Turkey from slaughtering the Kurds. That does give me pause. It does. But again, I also find the other argument really compelling. The argument of well, it's illegal that we're there in the first place. It's scandalous that we're there in the first place. And how much longer do you want to stay there? And I guarantee you this, guys, this is going to be an issue where the Democrats go all in. Why? Because it's an issue where they align with the CIA and state power. It's an issue where they align with the Pentagon. It's an issue where there's no real political risk to going all in on this and saying, how dare you, Donald Trump? So it's an issue where they're lining up against Trump, and their argument is, no, let's keep the troops deployed. So I guarantee you the media is going to go all in on this, and the Democrats are going to go all in on this. And it does kind of blow my mind and annoy me to no end that, they don't go all in on something like, hey, why are you still in Afghanistan? Why are you still in Iraq? It's never let's go all in on the anti-war angle, the anti-intervention angle. It's always the opposite. So now this happens to be one rare issue where it's actually questionable what he's doing, but go all in on why are you still in Iraq? Why are you still in Afghanistan? Those are areas where we definitely need to get out of and we need to do it now. But they're not going to do that, and that's upsetting. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see what everybody thinks about this issue, particularly because it appears like the action that we're taking will lead to more conflict and bloodshed. But at the same time, again, it's what do you want us to do? Stay there forever? What do you want us to do? So Donald Trump tweeted just before this segment here, recently, about an hour ago, he tweeted, I have stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey. I've done before. They must, with Europe and others, watch over the captured ISIS fighters and families. The U.S. has done far more than anyone could have ever expected, including the capture of 100% of the ISIS caliphate. It is time now for others in the region, some of great wealth, to protect their own territory. The USA is great. I mean, it's embarrassing that, I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits. I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey if they do anything I don't like. Presumably he's saying, don't touch the Kurds, but I don't know if a mean tweet from Trump is going to do it, because because I don't think anybody takes him seriously. I don't think world leaders take him seriously. I don't. I think they don't. And for understandable reasons. But anyway, that's your breakdown of what's happening in Syria. That's your breakdown of what's happening in Turkey and with the Kurds. And, it really is a difficult issue. You could tell I'm kind of torn on it, but I think there's real reason to be torn on it. But I tried to give you, the total picture, and now you can make your own mind up.